Good evening and welcome to the Top 25 Rundown presented by the Sportscast. Today is August 16, 2023. If you haven't yet, please subscribe on all your channels, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch.tv, and Apple Podcasts. If you are on Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating and review. It'll help us out tremendously. We are also on DAB Digital Radio. You can listen to us on your smart speaker, play Sportscast. Visit us on thesportscast.net. Also follow us on Twitter at the Sportscast1 and check out our app, the Sportscast, in the iOS App Store. Hello, my name is Alan West. Welcome to the Top 25 Rundown. I'm joined tonight by Bob Alvis, high school sports commentator, public address announcer, host of Sports Buffet, and multiple other jobs and activities. How are we doing tonight, sir?
We are well.
Now, I want you to think about something.
Okay.
Technically, in 10 days, we're going to have the first college football game of the year played.
Wow. Seems like it gets earlier and earlier because we just had the first NFL preseason game, I think 2 weeks ago. Last week we got into a lot of the regular preseason. And then I know we go again. Sorry, it's emotional for me. We go again this weekend. So it's gonna be some fun times. And I'll tell you, if you are married to a football fan, just kiss them goodbye on Saturdays and probably Sundays, and maybe Fridays and Thursdays and Wednesdays and Tuesdays, and sometimes Monday for the next few months.
So basically, every day and day, you may be saying goodbye to them.
You might get to have coffee with them still, but I don't know.
I wouldn't know. I'm not in that situation, although my daughter's definitely getting ready for college football. She is very ready for the rivalry game, if nothing else. That's for sure.
She's got a ways to go, but before that happens, a few months. But hey, the rivalry games, do they really mean as much if you're not having that record to where you're ready to go to a bowl game or a title game?
For us, yes. Even though it's nice to go to the playoff for a bowl game, but
I'm with you.
It's very important to us. But you know what? We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Speaking of that, though, Jim Harbaugh, he was supposed to be suspended for the first 4 games of the year, but the deal that he made with the NCAA infraction committee, they rejected it. So because of that, his suspension won't happen until next year. How do you feel about that?
How much was it really going to hurt? Honestly, not to be there for the first 4, which I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I know it wasn't Ohio State. I'm pretty sure it wasn't Penn State, so, yeah, a lot of times I think a lot of these coaches get violations to where their quote unquote suspension is you can't have an on-campus visit or this or that. So, to me, suspensions, infractions, and everything like that are kind of a joke because I don't know that really they're hard hit.
True. For me, it's just frustrating because you got in trouble and you had a thing set, but the NCAA, it feels like they're picking and choosing what they want to do right now, which that's kind of a problem. And with that being said, with that happening, I feel like they're losing more credibility than they already have right now. And with that, because they want to have issues like with the NIL, with the transfer portal, but then when they're going to discipline coaches, they won't even do anything like that, which I think that stance is not going to help them.
Well, I think, by the way, sorry if I'm taking you on an airplane ride tonight or anything with my phone. I'm trying to hold it steady, but my hand being steady is about the same chances as not going to happen. I think the NCAA, I think it was sometime in the 90s, there was something called the CFA, the College Football Association. I don't know that they really pump it a lot now, but I think the NCAA at some point is going to disband for football. And I think football is going to be a government on its own. Then I think basketball is going to follow. And I think the only sports you're going to have to where things are really governed by the NCAA are going to be, and I say this with love, it's going to be all your Olympic sports,
Probably.
aka everything but football and basketball.
Probably. I mean, last week, the gentleman I had on, he was telling me about the high school seniors that he was going to have take advantage of the NIL,
Right.
and he was explaining what he is looking at in regards to how he's going to do recruiting for it, and not only the cities he's going to use, but also the other things that were involved. It's pretty interesting just because for the recruiting as a high school senior and getting paid, then going to college, already having kind of a foothold in it. It's
Yep.
definitely something I'm going to be keeping track of. But speaking of money, you've seen the movie The Blind Side, correct?
I have. It's been a while. I mean, don't ask me for exact quotations, but yes, sir.
Okay. I assume you've seen what's happened in the last 2 days, this week regarding Michael Oher and the Tui family.
Yes, sir.
So I'm waiting to see what happens for that. I'm not going to try to rush judgment, but the Tui family's trying to say that it's a shakedown, whereas Michael Oher says that they showed that instead of him being adopted by them, he was set in a conservatorship with them,
Right.
which that feels off to me.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll tell you what really feels off to me. Michael Orr hasn't played in professional football since 2016. And just now we're kind of hearing about this. So I mean, that honestly is the part that feels more off to me than anything else. But the one thing when I first heard about this, I don't know what your first thought was, but if I'm not mistaken, a guy that was really close to I believe is the man's name Doug Tui.
I think, yeah.
Do you know who I thought was set to be really close with him? Hugh Priest. Very first thought that entered my head. So, I mean, no matter what, it's a sad situation that this is coming to light now. I don't want to play the whole why can't we all just get along thing, but like I'm a very naive person in terms of I assume that everybody gets along, and even if they don't get along, you're not looking to go out there and soil the other person or take advantage of them. But then again, when you look at all your data hacks around the world and your dark web and everything like that, there's bad people, unfortunately. I'm not saying the Tuies are bad people. I'm not saying Mike Orr is a bad person, but at some point, somebody's going to be viewed as a bad person.
I'm definitely curious to see what the court documents and how the information when it comes to light, how that's just going to play out, because there's a difference between adoption and a conservatorship.
Right. Right.
And for when the conservatorship paperwork was filed, when they talked about the 5 ways that the money was split, even though
Right.
they said that Michael Oher got it, the person who filed the conservatorship was one of Leanne Tui's best friends, who's a lawyer. She
Right.
filed that conservatorship. So what I read was they said they used a conservatorship so that he wouldn't get in trouble for an NCAA violation because the father, Sean, was a basketball player. But when you read one of the articles today, if he had been adopted, it still wouldn't have been a violation.
Right.
So,
And I mean, Michael Orr, played college football way before the NIL was thrown into play. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, to me, how does this end well? I would almost say it does not. Michael Orr, who of course played his football at Ole Miss. Houston Nutt was there for most of it, I think. So yeah, I mean it's a sad situation that happened, and honestly, people remember Michael Orr probably more for The Blind Side than they do anything else. And now, what are you going to remember Michael Orr for? A lawsuit?
That, and he's already written. This is the second book that he's written so far, so I'm kind of curious for that, just because playing devil's advocate, say that the money that they're saying that they didn't make, but they find out that they did, but court documents show that they did. That's not going to look good, because right now, Leanne Tui, one of her jobs that she does, she's a motivational speaker. And certain motivational speakers, when you do your speeches, you need credibility. So that would be something that would mess with the credibility a little bit, at least to me.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be the person that says I don't know, but in this case, I really don't know yet. I mean, I don't think it ends well for anybody at this point. I think we have passed the point of this ending well. Michael Orr, I think, is going to look bad out of this somehow, some way. And I mean, honestly, I don't think anybody ever remembers Michael Orr as a football player, unfortunately, which is sad, because he was a good football player. He was a good offensive lineman. But people are going to remember him for The Blind Side, and if people don't remember him for The Blind Side, they're going to remember him for the Taken by The Blind Side. So it's no situation at this point in my eyes.
Yeah, so we'll just see how that goes and keep an eye on that. Before we jump into more in depth on college football, there are two things I want to get into first. Sadly, ex-NFL running back Arkansas star Alex Collins died at 20 in a motorcycle crash, which that was a shame. Very sorry to hear that. Fortunately for the crash, he crashed into a sport utility vehicle. And, well, when you're in a motorcycle, the amount of protection you have isn't really that good. And unfortunately, when he crashed, he hit the window, he went inside the vehicle. So thoughts and prayers go out to his family, and that's a shame, because he had a great career at Arkansas, and then even in the NFL, multiple teammates of his there, and also he was playing football even this last year. I believe it was I think it was the USFL.
I want to say that's correct.
Yeah, he played for the Memphis Showboats, and even there, they all were saying that it was a shame for what happened to him. And Bob, the worst part about that? He is the second Arkansas player to die this summer. Ryan Mount was the first, now he's the second. Fortunately, I can't hear you, sir. I'm not sure what you're saying, but I guess your mic, for some reason, is not working.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I don't know what's going on. Technology is not my friend tonight. Alex Collins played for the Seattle Seahawks and the Baltimore Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
So if that ever comes up on your immaculate grid, you can use Alex Collins for that. But I mean, who knows how much more good football he could have had in his time.
One thing about when he was at Arkansas, he's just one of 5 players in SEC history to rush for 1,000 yards in 3 straight seasons. He joined Herschel Walker, Kevin Falk, Darren McFadden, and Bobby Snow Jr. So that's pretty good company to be in for that. That's
Well,
why it's. Go ahead.
and the SEC's had a lot of good running backs over time. I mean, you threw out a few names right there, and to me, Herschel Walker is one of the best running backs of all time in college
Yes,
football.
sir.
But I mean, you know who else played in the SEC? Who read me the list again? It was Herschel.
Herschel, Darren McFadden, Bobby Snow Jr., and Kevin Falk.
Do you know who else played in the SEC for Auburn? That was a really good running back.
Bo Jackson.
Two-sport athlete, Bo Jackson. And I mean, I don't think enough people understand how good Bo Jackson could have been had he not gotten hurt. So, when you look at Bo Jackson, I mean, Alabama has had a lot of great running backs lately. I mean, there's a lot of good running backs. And for Collins to be put in that trophy case, that is very impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but unfortunately, with him passing away at the age of 28, thoughts and prayers go out to his family. Real quick, before we jump into football, I do want to highlight women's volleyball. They just released the top 25 for that. And, sir, I know that you are partial to volleyball since I believe you coached it for a while.
Big time.
So, right now, for the top 25, we have Texas at number 1 with 44 first place votes. Wisconsin's number 2 with 7 first place votes. Stanford's number 3 with 13 first place votes. Louisville's number 4. Nebraska's number 5. They're tied with Pittsburgh at number 5. Then you have Minnesota at 7, Penn State at 8, Oregon at 9, Kentucky at 10, Florida at 11, Marquette at 12, San Diego at 13, Ohio State at 14, Baylor at 15, Purdue at 16, BYU at 17, Creighton at 18, Houston at 19, Georgia Tech at 20, Washington State at 21, Southern California at 22, Rice at 23, Western Kentucky at 24, and Arkansas at 25. So
it'll change quite a few times, but we got some exciting an exciting season of volleyball coming.
Absolutely. That was why when I had heard that the rankings had come out, I knew who would be very interested in wanting to make sure that we possibly mention that on the show.
Yep.
So we're going to keep that in mind just because volleyball, I'm not as big of a fan during the tournament for volleyball, but I've always seen it because I believe it's a best of 3 when you play. Either best of 3 or best of 5.
Best of 5.
And so that always, when it comes to tournament time, that always makes it a whole lot of fun just because it's do or die. And you watch teams basically fight to the death, I guess the best way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little harsh way to put it. Fight to the death. I mean, there's no jousting involved, but yeah, it's a really fun time to see college volleyball. And a lot of those teams that you mentioned, I mean, Penn State perennially very, very good team. So to hear them ranked, still high, but they've got some traffic ahead of them. That is, I think, a lot. That shows just how good the NCAA volleyball is right now, and that's a great thing in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fine. I won't say fight to the death, but it means that it's going to be very contentious and very, very contentious. So we'll just leave it at that because it means that when they go for their games, they're just going to leave it all out on the floor, which is how you should when you're playing a game.
Have you ever seen the movie Mystery Alaska?
I am not 100% sure on that.
Okay. It's about a group of Alaskans who play pond hockey, and they get the New York Rangers to come up there. And without giving away a lot of the movie, one of the lawyers who is from Mystery says these guys play because they love the game. And that's so much of what NCAA volleyball is. I mean, I don't want to say people don't care about rankings, but I mean, to me, they play for the love of the game. And that's what really makes the season a fun season in my eyes.
Fair enough. We'll definitely keep that in mind because I do know that even though I don't watch a lot of volleyball, I always see that it gets pretty crazy, and they always make sure to focus on how it is and just playing to the best of their ability every game.
Yeah, and one more thing on volleyball before you get
Go
into
ahead.
football. I mean, I encourage you to go to a high school game in your area, and there's going to be normally one player that can hit the ball really hard. Multiply that times maybe, depending on how hard they hit, I'd say multiply it maybe times 10 or maybe times 25. And that's how hard somebody hits it on college. So if you've got, ESPN Plus or whatever, just tune it in sometime and watch, just a minute. You don't have to watch a long time, but just watch a
Mhm.
few minutes of college volleyball. And I mean, kind of what you said earlier, some of those girls really can wail on the ball. And I wouldn't want to try to be the one to pass it.
And when I was in college, I did go to a few volleyball games, so I know what you're talking about.
Right.
But as we start to jump into college football, do you remember how we talked about the Iowa and Iowa State betting probe that was going on?
Yes, sir.
So I see that Isaiah Lee, who is one of the players who was charged in connection to the wagering, he left the program.
Okay.
He is
He's free to
alleged
bet
to have
now.
made, huh?
He's free to bet now.
Oh yeah, but he made 115 bets for $885 on the mobile app, allegedly, because then we were able to find more players that they talked about. They said that the group included Iowa State starting running back Jabril Brock, 3 teammates of starting experience, offensive tackle Jake Remsburg, and also tight end Deshaun Hanika. And then Iowa had their wide receiver Jack Johnson also charged. As a former players Arlen Bruce IV and Reggie Bracy, who went to Oklahoma State and Troy respectively. And then you had the Iowa student manager Owen O'Brien as charged as well. And Brock made 101,327 online wagers totaling more than $12,050 under a DraftKings account associated non-athlete. His wager included 3 games in which he participated last year against Iowa, Kansas State, and Georgia Tech. And Bruce and Bracy are alleged to have made wagers while they were underage. So, including bets on games he played against Michigan and South Dakota State last year. So, I mean, seeing some of these where they are, some of these show that they actually made wagers on games they played. That kind of reminds me of Pete Rose a little bit there.
I was just thinking the same thing. Bob Costas would always bring up the point of when Pete Rose didn't bet on the Reds, was that essentially a non-bet to where you don't have as much confidence in your team? But if you do bet on the Reds, are you pitching a pitcher maybe longer than you normally would to try to win the bet? And, I don't know how to spin that in college football, but I think it's kind of the same way in terms of, it and it's not really from what we've heard, the coaches aren't doing it, but how much, if you're the players, do you kind of have influence? It's a lot different than basketball. When basketball, you only got 5. I mean, in football, you've got 11. And I mean, I think it's hard to, purposely affect a game, in my opinion. Not impossible, but harder.
Yep. Well, what we'll do now is, although the betting is a big probe, and then Northwestern are still trying to get through everything that they're going through, and we haven't heard anything about them for a while, so we're still just keeping track of that slowly but surely. They did release the preseason All-America college football team. Did you take a look at that yet?
I didn't, but let me ask you a quick question. When
Go
we
ahead.
don't hear about something for a while, in your opinion, is that good or bad?
Depending on the situation, honestly, I think that in this case, it's probably not good. I
See,
think that in this case
I
they're
take the
probably
opposite
trying
view.
to. You take the opposite view. Okay.
It can't be bad. I mean,
I mean, they have two independent investigations going on. Plus, they
right.
have the athletic director and the president trying to figure out what they're doing as well. I'm wondering if they're already in talks with the NCAA to try to figure out how they want to try to proceed with any fines and punishments they're going to get.
Yeah, when I said what I said, I wasn't, totally disagreeing with you. I don't know that there's a quote unquote good or bad in that. But, I mean, I think we're both right. I think it's maybe good and bad. So anyway, talk to me about the preseason All-American team. Didn't mean to get you on a sidetrack.
It's okay. I mean, hey, we were both thinking it, even though I was just going to wait. So we have as a starting quarterback Caleb Williams from USC. We have for the running backs Blake Corum from Michigan and Quashon Judkins from Ole Miss. Now, Corum, we're going to see how he comes back when he tore his when he messed up his left knee in the next last regular game of the year. They say he should be, or he says he's better than ever. So we're going to see how that goes for him this year. Keep my fingers crossed on that. For the wide receivers, we have Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State. We have Rome Odunze from Washington. Tight end, we have Brock Bowers from Georgia. Offensive tackle, we have Joe Alt from Notre Dame. Offensive guard, we have Tyler Booker from Alabama. Center, we have Cedric Van Pran from Georgia. Other offensive guard, we have Cooper Beebe from Kansas State. Other offensive tackle, we have Olu Fashanu from Penn State. And then the all-purpose back, they have Emeka Abuka from Ohio State. That's pretty strong. I'm not going to lie.
It is. And, I mean, the part I think everybody's going to focus on is Caleb Williams. So, I mean, we'll see how that goes. But it's funny because when you get these preseason teams, there's always kind of like that underdog that comes in late. And you're almost like, why wasn't he on the preseason team? So I think it's going to be interesting to see who is that underdog this year.
That is true. Well, the other thing we're going to do after look at the preseason team, ESPN also did a college football top 100 players we're going to go through as well. So that way we'll be able to kind of see which players they thought are going to be ones that make an impact, even though they weren't technically on the All-American team. So we'll be able to go through a little controversy in that in a second. On defense, you have defensive end Jared Verse from Florida State, defensive tackle Jerzon Newton from Illinois. The other defensive end, you have Michael Williams from Georgia. Linebacker edge, you have Dallas Turner from Alabama. Another linebacker, you have Harold Perkins Jr. from LSU. Another linebacker, you have Jamin Dumas Johnson from Georgia. The last linebacker, you have Barrett Carter from Clemson. For corners, you have Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama. And you have Kalen King from Penn State. The two safeties, you have Cameron Kinchens from Miami and Malachi Starks from Georgia. For special teams, the kicker, you have Joshua Carty from Stanford. The punter, you have Kai Kroger from South Carolina. And the kick returner, you have Lyda Trick Griffin from Mississippi State. So that's your All-America team for the preseason.
And, I was thinking about this earlier, and I don't know your thoughts on it or not, but to me, college football, the special teams are so important.
Oh, yes.
Because, look at Auburn and Alabama years ago, the kick six. I mean, how many times have you seen a game come down to either we're going to kick a field goal because we know our kicker can handle it, or we're not going to kick a field goal because it might be out of his range, and it's only like a 42-yarder, which is, I don't want to say a chip shot in the NFL, but a lot of guys make that on a regular basis. So it's, and I mean, in college football, I mean, even extra points aren't automatic. So, yeah, those kickers and punters, they have a lot of eyes on them in my eyes.
Definitely true. So let's for the college football rankings, they just released them. We have Georgia at number 1, Michigan at number 2, Ohio State at number 3, Alabama at number 4, LSU at number 5, USC at number 6, Penn State at number 7, Florida State at number 8, Clemson at number 9, Washington number 10, Texas number 11, Tennessee number 12, Notre Dame number 13, Utah number 14, Oregon number 15, Kansas State number 16, TCU number 17, Oregon State number 18, Wisconsin number 19, Oklahoma number 20, North Carolina number 21, Ole Miss number 22, Texas A&M number 23, Tulane number 4, and Iowa number 25. That rounds out the top 25.
Yeah, the thing that struck me when you're reading that and looking at that as well is, boy, are all eyes on Florida State, because Florida State's been down for the last few years. Obviously, eyes are on Georgia as they're looking to three-peat. But, I mean, Florida State's been down by their standards. Other people would love to have what they've been having, but, you've got essentially Florida State ahead of Clemson. I mean, not essentially, you do. So, should be interesting.
I'm definitely curious about that just because how they play LSU at the beginning of the year again.
Big one.
So that's going to be definitely one of the biggest games of the year. And see how Mike Norvell's done, because he hasn't had it easy at Florida State, but he's been fighting every year to make him bigger and better every year.
I don't know that I would say the seat is getting warm in Tallahassee, but it's getting a little toasty. You got your hand warmers on the old.
I don't know if I'd say it's getting warm, but it's definitely not cold. I mean, when Norvell took over after the coach that they had before Noble, I believe he went to Oklahoma, went to Oregon, didn't he?
Yep, Willie Taggart.
Yes. And then, well, that didn't work out because Taggart, they thought he was going to stay at Florida State, and then when he left, that really threw a wrench in their plans.
Well, really hard to obviously follow in the footsteps of Bobby Bowden, but Jimbo Fisher did pretty well at Florida State too.
Yes.
So now you're trying to follow. I mean, ever since I was a young lad in my early double digits, I mean, Florida State's always had that national. I mean, this is before all the games weren't on TV, but Florida State games were on TV a lot, and I mean, teams like Michigan and everybody like that, they were scheduling Florida State. And, it's just Florida State has kind of always been a measuring stick. And to see them not a measuring stick is really weird.
That's true. That's definitely true. I'm definitely curious to see what turns up for it. That's for sure. So why don't we jump into the ESPN article for the top 100 players of 2023?
Okay.
Number 1, you have Caleb Williams. Number 2, you have Brock Bowers. Number 3, you have Marvin Harrison Jr. Number 4, you have Harold Perkins Jr. And actually, he's a linebacker at LSU, a sophomore, whereas Marvin Harrison Jr. is a wide receiver from Ohio State, a junior. Brock Bowers is a tight end from Georgia, junior, and Caleb Williams is a quarterback, USC junior, Heisman Trophy winner. So then number 5, you have Drake May, quarterback, North Carolina, as a sophomore. You have Michael Penix Jr., number 6, a quarterback from Washington, senior. You have Blake Corum, number 7, running back, Michigan, a senior. You have Jordan Travis, Florida State quarterback, a senior. You have Jared Verse, number 9, defensive lineman from Florida State, a junior. You have Michael Williams, a defensive end edge rusher from Georgia, who's a sophomore. You have Joe Alt, an offensive lineman from Notre Dame, a junior. You have Kool-Aid McKinstry, a defensive back, Alabama, junior. You have Emeka Abugka, a wide receiver, Ohio State, junior. You have Bo Nix, a quarterback for Oregon, a senior. Number 15, you have Jaden Daniels, quarterback at LSU, senior. Number 16, you have Olu Fashanu, an offensive lineman, Penn State, a junior. Number 17, you have Donovan Edwards, a running back from Michigan, a junior. Number 18, you have Raheem Sanders, running back, Arkansas, a junior. Number 19, you have Zach Zinter, an offensive lineman from Michigan, a junior. Number 20, you have Rome Adunze, wide receiver from Washington, who's a junior. Number 21, you have Jeremiah Trotter Jr., a linebacker from Clemson, who's a junior. Number 22, you have Quinson Judkins, a running back from Ole Miss, who's a sophomore. Number 23, you have Cameron Rising, a quarterback for Utah, who's a senior. Number 24, you have Jamin Dumas Johnson, a linebacker from Georgia, who's a sophomore. Number 25, you have Sam Hartman, a quarterback, Notre Dame, who's a senior. Are you starting to notice a little bit of a pattern on this list for the top 25?
Heard a lot of pattern. I mean, pattern is Bob's old because he recognizes a lot of these people's dads.
Well, besides that,
Power 5 schools?
mostly that, and you could hear more quarterbacks
Yeah.
and wide receivers. So, I mean, in the top 25, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 quarterbacks. Whereas when you have running backs, you started out with 1, 2, 3, 4 running backs. Although, if you notice that the 2 from Michigan were both in the top 20.
Yep.
I mean, we're going to see how that goes. I'm not saying that they may not deserve it, but I think there should be a little more parity. That's just me.
What's that symbol on the chest of your shirt, by the way?
Yes, it is Ohio State, sir.
No, I'm just
Even
giving you a
still,
hard time.
though, no,
Yeah.
I know, but even still,
Well,
when
and
I was growing up, I saw Tashinga Biak Vatuka run
right?
for over 300 yards against us. So I understand about how there are good running backs in Michigan. I do
Yeah.
understand that. But I just want to wait and see what happens just because Corum, I think he was rated too high just because with his knee injury. I think they're kind of setting him up for a fall in some ways. I mean, I hope that he's able to succeed with the hype, but just if he doesn't, I don't want him to be considered a bust this last year for him coming back.
Right.
I still
Just
want them
out
to
of-
lose, but that besides the point.
Just out of curiosity, and to get off the topic here real quick, Who are your top 2, top 3 Michigan running backs that you've seen? Not in person necessarily, but just, since you've been paying attention. You don't have to give them in order.
Bianca Matuka.
Okay. Mike Hart.
Never.
Okay.
Mike Hart was a joke.
Okay. I'm just trying to throw out some names.
Yeah, no, never Mike Hart.
Tyrone Wheatley before your time.
He was a little bit. He was
Okay.
when I was starting out, but he would be one who I would say. I mean, you could even say Anthony Thomas.
Yeah. A-Train.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, there was one other.
I'm gonna look up some names real quick,
Go ahead.
and then
So
I
I'm
want
trying to think about it because no Hart. The only thing he did as a running back in Michigan was try to fight some of the players at Ohio State when they took the lead for a moment. Then Ohio State said, "Sit down and take your loss."
right, but I got to think Hart, if I'm not mistaken, is actually up there in some of the record books. He's the all-time leading rusher by yards.
Because the game's away from Ohio State.
Let's see. So we're looking at the Anthony Thomas
Mm-hmm.
era. Denard Robinson was pretty good.
He's a quarterback, though.
Well, yeah, but he ran a lot.
He did run a lot. That
Yeah.
is for sure. Shoelace did run a lot.
Yep. Let's see. Chris Perry.
Yeah, you can go with Chris Perry. I mean, he's a good running back.
Let's see. All right. Well, what about your top 3 Ohio State guys?
For running backs,
Yep, that you've seen.
all right. Eddie George,
Okay.
Maurice Claret,
Okay.
and Feeney Wells.
Okay. You know one name that popped into my head a little bit
Go
was
ahead.
Pepe Pearson.
Yep, he was also a very good running back.
Pepe
I like
Pearson
Pepe. I like
is
Pepe.
number 11 all time in rushing
Mhm.
for Ohio State. So I mean that just tells you. I mean, and then the guy that you left out too, Zeke.
That's true. True. Zeke.
Zeke, very good runner.
Yeah, I should have put Zeke over one of the other ones. Yeah.
Yep, that's all right. I just didn't mean to get off topic there, but was just curious.
That's okay. And the reason why I stopped at 25 in the VAs is because Sam Hartman, how he just transferred to Notre Dame,
Yep.
how they have him at 25. In some ways, I feel he should be higher just because I think he's going to be, I think he's going to have a better opportunity to succeed at Notre Dame than he did at Wake Forest.
Well, quarterback's a spot too. I mean, most people cannot name you one. I don't. They're not going to be able to name you an offensive lineman. But why is Caleb Williams good? Well, I mean, he's good because he's Caleb Williams, but he's also good because that offensive line helps him out. I mean, same thing when you get to the big boy level of the NFL. I mean, a lot of times, and I'm a big player of the Immaculate Grid, and you play football. You can play football, but how many people are picking, quarterbacks? I mean, a lot of people, even if they, if they're like, I'm an 80s guy, I can tell you who backup quarterbacks were before I can tell you who the starting center was. So it's just a thing to where the quarterback position is the attractive position on the field. But I mean, those quarterbacks are good. Don't get me wrong, but they're not great without the O-line.
Mm-hmm.
And, the last big O-lineman, I mean, there have been a few, but I mean, Orlando Pace sticks in my head. I mean, but very rarely are you going to see an offensive lineman spoken of in the name of Orlando Pace or, others.
kind of like, I mean, for me, I remember Orlando Pace.
Mhm.
I remember there was a game where he had one hand on one guy, one hand on the other guy, and just he took care of both of them at the same time.
Right.
But you think of someone kind of like Jonathan Ogden
Mhm.
in that, like how that is. So yeah, no, I understand. Actually, let's go back on the list. Number 26 is Will Shipley, a running back for Clemson, a junior. Now, here's the one thing I appreciate and respect. He made the All ACC team 3 times as a tailback, all-purpose player, and return man. That's pretty
Right.
good.
Yeah. And
So,
Clemson had been quarterback U for a while,
mm-hmm,
but that's kind of hit a bump a little
mm-hmm.
bit because I don't think your quarterbacks lately have been as good. One of my best friends is a big Clemson fan, so I pay attention to the Tigers a lot more than I do some other teams. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Clemson really has to figure out. I don't want to say a way to get a balance now, but you're not going to be able to get your points with just a QB.
Well, that's why they're going to see how the new offensive coordinator Garrett Riley does things. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. Now, number 7, we have Cooper Beebe, guard, Kansas State senior. Number 28, we have Dallas Turner, offensive linebacker. Outside linebacker, Alabama junior. Number 29, we have Nicholas Singleton, running back, Penn State sophomore. Number 30, we have KJ Jefferson, quarterback, Arkansas senior. 31, we have Braylon Allen, running back, Wisconsin junior. Number 32, we have Frank Harris, quarterback, University of Texas, San Antonio senior. Number 33, we have Trevion Henderson, running back, Ohio State junior. Number 34, we have Barrett Carter, linebacker, Clemson junior. Number 35, we have Zerhan Newton, defensive lineman, Illinois junior. Number 36, we have Will Rogers, quarterback, Mississippi State senior. Number 37, we have Malik Neighbors, wide receiver, LSU junior. Number 38, we have Jacob Cowing, wide receiver, Arizona senior. Number 39, we have J.J. McCarthy, quarterback, Michigan junior. Number 40, we have Malachi Starks, defensive back, Georgia sophomore. Number 41, we have Smail Mondon Jr., linebacker, Georgia junior. Number 42, we have Cedric Van Prans, center, Georgia junior. Number 43, we have Christian Mahogany, offensive lineman, Boston College senior. Number 44, we have Jalen Daniels, quarterback, Kansas junior. Number 45, we have Kalen King, cornerback, Penn State junior. Number 46, we have Cooper DeJean, cornerback, Iowa junior. Number 47, we have Tommy Eichenberg, a linebacker, Ohio State senior. Bob, did you hear about what he did last year? Just because, yeah, this is the only time you'll hear me be an Ohio State homer.
Go for it.
He played with 2 broken hands. And he still led the Buckeyes defense with 120 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, and 77 solo tackles.
If I get a hurt pinky, I'm out of action for 4 days.
He literally played with 2 broken hands, I want to say, at least the last 2 months of the year.
Okay.
So I mean, he was named a lot impact finalist in the Butkus Award semifinals, so he did something right. So I'm curious to see how he is when he's not hurt like that.
Right.
Just because, yeah, I admit I'm a homer, but when I heard that, you got to be pretty strong to do something like that, at least in
Sure.
my point of view.
Sure.
So I'll step off my homer soapbox now. And we'll get back down to the countdown. We have at 48, Jalen McMillan, a wide receiver from Washington, who's a junior. 49, we have Latu, linebacker, UCLA senior. Number 50, we have Mayan Williams, a running back, Ohio State senior. Number 51, we have Danny Stutzman, a linebacker, Oklahoma junior. Number 52, we have Dorian Singer, a wide receiver, USC junior. Number 53, we have Grayson McCall, quarterback, Coastal Carolina Junior. Number 54, we have J.C. Latham, an offensive lineman, Alabama Junior. Number 55, we have Will Johnson, a cornerback, Michigan, a sophomore. Number 56, we have Junior Colson, a linebacker, Michigan, a junior. Number 57, we have Rasheen Ali, a running back from Marshall, who's a sophomore. Number 58, you have Cam Kinchens, a safety in Miami, a junior. Number 59, you have Xavier Worthy, a wide receiver at Texas, who's a junior. Number 60, you have Dylan Gabriel, a quarterback from Oklahoma, who's a senior. Number 61, you have Johnny Wilson, a wide receiver from Florida State, a junior. Number 62, you have Braylon Trice, a defensive lineman, Washington, who's a junior. Number 63, you have Kalen Bullock, a safety from USC, who's a junior. Number 64, you have Cedric Gray, a linebacker from North Carolina, who's a senior. Number 65, you have Fentrell Cypress II, who's a quarterback from Florida State, who's a junior. Number 66, you have Tyler Davis, a defensive tackle from Clemson, who's a senior. Number 67, you have Anais Smith, a wide receiver from Texas A&M, who's a senior. Number 68, you have Katron Allen, a running back from Penn State, who's a sophomore. Number 69, you have Trey Benson, the running back from Florida State, who's a junior. Number 70, you have Travis Hunter, an all-purpose for Colorado, who's a sophomore. Number 71, you have Tyler Booker, an offensive guard from Alabama, who's a sophomore. Number 72, you have Josh Newton, a safety from TCU, who's a senior. Number 73, you have Chop Robinson, a defensive lineman from Penn State, who's a junior. Number 74, you have Johnny Hodges, a linebacker from TCU, who's a senior. Number 75, you have Colin Oliver, a linebacker from Oklahoma State, who's a junior. Number 76, you have Joe Milton III, a quarterback from Tennessee, who's a senior. Number 77, you have Bucky Irving, a running back from Oregon, who's a junior. Number 78, you have Devin Neal, who's a running back from Kansas, who's a junior. Number 79, you have Mason Smith, a defensive tackle from LSU, who's a sophomore. Number 80, you have Brand Kuthi, a tight end from Utah, who's a senior. Number 81, you have Peyton Wilson, a linebacker from NC State, who's a senior. Number 82, you have Abdul Carter, a linebacker from Penn State, who's a sophomore. Number 83, you have Jalen Catalon, who's a safety from Texas, who's a senior. Number 84, you have Austin Reed, a quarterback from Western Kentucky, who's a senior. Number 85, you have JT Tumalo, a defensive lineman from Ohio State, who's a sophomore. Number 86, you have Keon Coleman, a wide receiver from Florida State, who's a junior. Number 87, you have Will Howard, a quarterback from Kansas State, who's a senior. Number 88, you have Jalen Ford, a linebacker from Texas, who's a senior. Number 89, you have Satoa Lalomea, an offensive lineman from Utah, who's a junior. Number 90, you have Graham Barton, a left tackle from Duke, who's a senior. Number 91, you have Antoine Wells Jr., a wide receiver from South Carolina, who's a senior. Number 92, you have Riley Leonard, a quarterback from Duke, who's a junior. Number 93, you have Spencer Rattler, quarterback from South Carolina, who's a senior. Number 94, you have Richard Reese, a running back from Baylor, who's a sophomore. Number 95, you have Damian Martinez, a running back from Oregon State, who's a sophomore. Number 96, you have Donovan Isaraku, a defensive end from Boston College, who's a junior. Number 97, you have Aranda Gaston II, a wide receiver from Syracuse, who's a junior. Number 98, you have Kobe Bryant, a quarterback from Kansas, who's a junior. Spelled Cobee. There is a difference. Number 99, you have Michael Pratt, a quarterback from Tulane, who's a senior. And at number 100, you have Frank Gore Jr., a running back at Southern Miss, who's a junior. That was a long list.
Was.
So, other than hearing a lot of quarterbacks, was there anything else that you noticed on that list?
Once you hit, I want to say, maybe in the area of 30 to 70, it seemed like there were a lot of linebackers.
That too, yes. So, I mean, how we were talking about that many people are going to be possibly different from the All-American team. I'd like to think that some of the lower players we're going to see on there. There was one thing that kind of caught my eye when I was going down that list. One of the safeties that was on the preseason All America team, he was past number 50,
Right.
which maybe it's a little selfish of me to think this, but if you're on the preseason All America team, I would think you would have been higher.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, like I said, I mean, I think you got to put stock into these preseason teams with their preseason. But I think at the end of the day, can these teams be used to motivate? Where are these teams going? What's going to happen to them? Because you got to look at the other way around too. A guy can feel, hey, I made the top 100. Hey, I made this, I made that. I'm good. I'm a really good player, and then he falters. So I think there's a lot of different ways you can go. At the end of the day, though, I don't think somebody is walking out into the field and saying, "Hey, I'm number 47. Watch out for me," type of thing. I mean, I think it's
I
it's a
doubt it.
good ranking. Don't get me wrong, but I think at the end of the day, I don't know how. I don't know. I don't know if these guys are going to use that as fuel, or if they're going to be too giddy on it.
Yeah. No, I mean that remains to be seen, and that's part of the enjoyment we get out of college football,
Yep.
seeing what happens.
Yep.
Well, sir, I know we're almost finished.
Yep.
Did you hear about the Big 12? What they were who they were trying to court before they were able to get a hold of Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah?
Tell me again because I might have, but dude, there's been so much, courting and everything of college teams. I've honestly lost track.
UConn and Gonzaga.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought one of them was Gonzaga. I mean, I guess it's better than Stanford being in the ACC.
Yeah,
But I mean,
I
at the end of the day, this is going to get worse before it gets better.
oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I saw a thing that showed the Big Three was going to be the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Big 12, and it showed all the different teams that were going to be in it. I'll send that to you after we finish here, and you can take a
Okay.
look at it. It was interesting, shall we say?
Yeah.
So I mean, we're going to see what happens for that, but I'm definitely curious to understand about that. And actually, one other thing for women's basketball, South Carolina announced that they're going to honor Tiffany Mitchell. She was the person who helped South Carolina make it to their first Final Four back in 2015. So that's something that I'd say that's deserved.
Yeah, and I'm glad South Carolina's not forgetting where they've come from.
Exactly. And that's one thing that you've noticed for Dawn Staley. She always makes sure that no matter what, her players will get recognized one way or another, even if people aren't always happy
Right.
about it.
Yep.
She's not afraid to take a stand and say and do what she wants in a way that makes sure that things are done how she feels are the right way.
100% right. 100%.
So, well, sir, is there anything else you can think of at this moment for what we've been talking about?
Uh, it's kind of corny, but stay tuned because I feel like there's going to be a lot more that's going to, happen, whether it be good or bad, before things settle down.
Yep, and the plan I believe next week is to start going through some more of the college football, basketball. A little early on that, but we will. I know we're going to start going through it, and we may have some other people on as well, so that we can hit some of the different conferences and just see where they're going to go from here.
Should be fun.
Absolutely, definitely looking forward to that. And so, if we were going to make the mistake and try and get a hold of you, how would we do that, sir?
Twitter's the best way, the sports buffet. Everything else is secondary, but I would say hit the Twitter if you're really hard up and desperate.
I understand. I have Twitter as well under Alan F. West, or I have Facebook and Instagram. I thought it was Alan.West.46. Turns out it's Alan.West.16. Found that out the
Okay.
hard way this last week. That was fun. But sir, I appreciate the time as always, and look forward to doing it again next week. Hope you have a good week, and I know your daughter started school this week, so hopefully that's going well. My daughter's getting ready to enjoy that. We actually have back to school night tomorrow, so we're going to see how that goes.
Always enjoy the time with you, Alan. It's my pleasure.
Have a great week, everybody. This has been the Top 25 Rundown. You got the Jersey Boys tomorrow. That's Bob. I'm Alan. Have a great night.